When was the first time that you actually had to make a physical stand?
What I ended up doing was my wife and I were in bed and, trying to get some sleep. And I slept on the side of the bed nearest the bathroom. And out of nowhere, it was probably, I don't know, maybe 11, 12 o'clock at night, maybe a little later. I started feeling and sensing that there was something in the room with us. And I thought, man, that's weird. This is out in the middle of nowhere, and, the dogs are in the other room. There's not a dog. There's something in this room. And I had taken this little baseball bat, an aluminum baseball bat that you usually give away on game day at some of the baseball parks. And it's about maybe 2.5 feet long. And, it's a good little club. And so I stuck it in the sideboard of the bed, and just to have something there in case. And all of a sudden I felt this like bony, clammy hand or something touching my left wrist in the bed. And kind of like just like trying to kind of like walk up my arm.
Yeah, the mother-in-law's not even here tonight.
Yeah, and I thought to myself, okay, I'm definitely feeling this. I need to do something about this. So I reached down and I grabbed that baseball bat, and I turned around, and all of a sudden there was this face connected to the arm and the hand that was touching me. And I grabbed that little sucker and I popped him in the head as hard as I could. And he just fell backwards. And then I noticed there were 2 more of these creatures that were right behind him off to the side. Well, all 3 of them just seemed like they were in total shock, and they just disappeared. They just literally just, bam, gone. And at that point, I flipped on the light, and I turned around, and I looked at Joyce, and she's snoring away. And I shook her awake, and I said, "We've got aliens." And she just looked at me, and she goes, "Oh, for Pete's sake, go to sleep." And she rolled over and went back to sleep.
Wow. See, that kind of scenario, a lot of people, a lot of skeptics would put it down to a possible sleep paralysis episode, something like that. That's something that I've experienced myself. I might talk about that later. But I mean, was this something like, did you know right away that this happened? This isn't some figment of my imagination. This is a physical thing that has just happened to me.
Yeah, I really did. I mean, I grew up in Chicago, and in Chicago back in the 60s, they didn't have air conditioning very much. And so, we had screen windows. And so, as a kid, especially as an only child growing up there, I had to be very, very aware of everything in my environment all the time. And we didn't live in a great place of town or part of town. And so there was a lot of crime. And so I grew up around threatening circumstances. And so I'm always very aware of my environment. And, it didn't change when I moved to Arizona and moved out to the ranch. Mm-hmm. And so, anything that happens around me, I can feel it. I just know. And that night, I sure knew. I didn't know it was aliens. I didn't know what it was. But I knew something was there.
So, yeah, it's the attack of the midgets.
It could have been.
Was this before or after the incident with the horse in the fence?
This is actually, let's see, this would be afterwards.
That was after. Can you talk about that briefly?
Well, we had some problems with, I guess I'll have to go into this a little bit. In the desert, unfortunately, when people have horses and they run out of money, horses are very expensive, by the way, to take care of. And, we've always had, anywhere from 15 to 100 of them at a time. And so right now we only have 15, but at the time, I kept driving out into the desert and finding all these abandoned horses out there. And I was horrified. I couldn't imagine people would just take a beautiful horse and take it out to the desert and dump it. But, when people run out of money, they're afraid they'll get in trouble. So they take the horse out in the desert and they just leave it. And some of them survive, some of them don't. and depending on how much water it is or is around and what time of year it is. And so I'd take my Jeep and drive out there, and I'd see all these horses. So I started going out and giving them feed and buying hay for them. And next thing, before I knew, all the horses had decided that, I was the feed wagon, and I'd turn the Jeep around and go back to the ranch, and all the horses would follow me. And so I ended up with all these horses coming back to the ranch. And I thought, well, that's cool. I don't have to buy them. I mean, they're perfectly good horses, So I ended up with like a whole bunch of horses. And, they were perfectly happy. And, gradually I get people to teach me how to break them and ride them and do all the things that, a city kid doesn't know how to do.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, as things began to get stranger and stranger on the ranch, we started running into situations where a couple of the horses got attacked by something. And at first we thought it was some kind of animal, but it wasn't. It was what they call a mutilation situation. And literally the horses were gutted and killed in horrible, horrible ways. But it was really strange in the fact that the way it was done, it was like surgical precision. It was like somebody had used like a laser or a really sharp knife and had gone into the anus and cored out the guts, had gone and cut out the tongue, had gone ahead and removed the feet, removed the eyes, things like that. But there was no blood. And it was just a corpse, a body. And you could tell that they had been hurt horribly, that they were terrified when it happened because they were in very strange, contorted positions. Yeah. They didn't give in easily. And this happened on 3 different occasions over a period of about 2 years. And, it was one of the worst things I had ever seen in my life. And I felt terrible, because it happened. But there was no way I could have known. And I, called the sheriff's department, and they called out the livestock board, and everybody came out and looked at it. They spent days trying to figure it out and writing up a file on it. But, nothing ever came of it. We were never able to get any kind of good information about, what was the cause or how it happened or anything else. But doing a little bit of research, we found out that had been going on for a while. And it wasn't just happening at this ranch, it had been happening at other ranches around. And still nobody could figure out what it was.